What up? It is the On Friar podcast brought to you by NBC7. Pleased as always to be in the company of Derek Togerson. I'm Darnay Tripp. All-Star break now behind us. It's Thursday afternoon. Real baseball returns Friday, so we will look ahead to the second half. How you feeling, Derek Togerson?
It's warm. It's very warm out there, but I like it.
It's
Hopefully this is a harbinger of the Padres heating up. Maybe it's just the fact that the San Diego weather has not gotten as warm as it usually does, as early in the year as it does. So the Padres kind of biding their time, and now this heat wave comes in, and they decide to start playing like they actually should be playing. That would be lovely.
It's funny you say that because you know how it is on the TV side. We often follow weather. And so you have this segues between weather and sports. And one that is often made is the weather parallel. And so that joke has been made, I would say, on multiple occasions, like still waiting for the weather to heat up, still waiting for the Padres to heat up. And
yeah, because we're very creative in the news business, obviously.
We don't recycle those at all, year after year.
We don't do the same stories at the fair every year. We don't do the same election night stories every year. We don't do the same spring training stories every year.
Economic impact of opening day. Go.
Oh God, where do you want to start?
So yeah,
let's talk about the homeless around Petco Park.
Hopefully that is a hint at what's to come for the Padres, because it is suddenly sweltering in San Diego, which I'm like you. I enjoy the warmth.
Yes.
The kind of cooler temperatures were bumming me out. Want to do some beach days and get out there and feel the sun. So enjoying it very much. Before we get going, thanks to OG's, sponsor of the On Fire podcast. OG's has been crafting award-winning microbrews, which I find myself wanting on these warm days. Over 60 medals in international, national, and regional competitions. OG's, one of the most decorated breweries in the world, with each OG's location having 12 proprietary OG's beers on tap. They've launched a new menu this year, as they do every few years. This year, focusing on bringing in new items that help keep OG's fresh and on trend. Some new items: Mediterranean salmon bowl, 2 new specialty pizzas, try pepperoni. I need to try the try pepperoni because I love pepperoni.
Now, is that try like TRI pepperoni?
TRI pepperoni. So that would be three types of pepperoni, right?
I didn't know there were that many types of pepperoni.
I don't know. Maybe it's like the bigger, the smaller, the ones that cup. I don't know. Extra crispy. Who knows?
But yeah, I know a bunch of types of salami. I had no idea that many types of pepperoni.
Yeah. Ricotta pizza as well. Buffalo cauliflower, which I love, and a Nashville hot chicken sandwich. Who doesn't love a hot chicken sandwich? OG's loyalty program, super easy. You can do it online. You can earn loyalty points, rewards, and exclusive offers, all of which leads to fun and free food. Who doesn't love that? And ordering online from OG's, easier than ever to do. Get OG's straight to your door. We'll talk some Padres. First, the walk-up music. Is the On Fire podcast. Derek Togerson, Darnay Tripp, excited to get back into real baseball. Derek, this particular All-Star break, maybe it was just with, having Soto and Hader there. Soto wasn't starting. We thought maybe we'd get another guy. I feel like there'd be a little bit more juice if, Tatis had gotten in, like we thought he might, as kind of an alternate. Blake Snell in his hometown. Ended up being kind of a quiet All-Star break. I mean, I was running around a lot on Tuesday, so I didn't even really get a chance to watch the game. I don't know how dialed in you were with that. I feel like
I didn't see a single pitch. I don't like All-Star games of any sport.
I did not know this about you.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those like, okay, it's an exhibition. Yay, see the guys in the uniforms. Great. I have better things to do. I take a mental break on the All-Star break. Plus, I was much more fascinated with what was going on in the Major League Baseball draft. That was where my focus was.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel that for sure. And I was with you in that when you're dialed in kind of on a daily basis, more or less, it is nice to have a few days just to kind of, maybe not engage with it to that level. And because, Joe Musgrove wasn't starting in the All-Star game, or, there weren't like six
Right.
players there like we thought might be like a possibility before the season. It was easy to kind of skate by. I have a bunch of second half questions to throw your way.
Yes.
But I'll give you the floor if you have just a general big picture takeaway from this Padres draft, since, as you mentioned, you were a lot more engaged with that.
It was interesting to me because it wasn't a whole lot of, your big name guy. It was the Dylan Head, the kid they took in the first round. Like I was walking around the newsroom going, that's an AJ Preller guy. He's the next CJ Abrams, high contact, ridiculous 80 grade speed, which you don't see very often. So it kind of makes a lot of sense. And then it was a bunch of kids from smaller schools, a kid from a two-way player from University of Mobile, which is an NAIA school. They got going after guys who maybe not your household name kind of guys. A lot of guys who weren't really even on the big major radar, but they're doing, I think, one of two things. Either A, they know they didn't have a whole lot of signing bonus money, signing pool, because they have spent so much on luxury tax and international market, yada, yada, yada. Their signing pool was down a little bit. So I think they had to do a little more gambling with some of their picks, take some guys who were going to be very signable, who maybe didn't think they'd be going that high. So when you talk about the money aspect, that was a factor. But then I also think this team has drafted so incredibly well. We could talk about the development aspect of it at a different time, but they've drafted really, really well. A lot of teams are very interested, and AJ says it all the time. A lot of teams are interested in our pieces, interested in our guys. So they get players in there who maybe don't show as much to other people. So I'm very curious to see how this goes. Like, a shortstop or a second baseman from Duke who maybe was just more of an aluminum back guy. I think this kid, Nick McLaren, the shortstop from Arizona, they got in the 10th round. I look at this kid. He's 5'9". He's 165 pounds. He had 8 career home runs in 3 years at Arizona, but he was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. And I'm telling you, Darnay, I looked up his video and it immediately shot me back to a kid who I covered when I was working in Arizona, who was drafted out of Arizona State by the name of Dustin Pedroia, who hit 14 career home runs at Arizona State, and then goes on to win 2 World Series and an American League MVP award because he was just undervalued. He just reminds me of one of those just grinders who's never going to stop coming after you, a David Eckstein kind of guy. That's the one who I'm most curious and kind of excited about because, you give me a dude who can play defense and just grinds and is going to do anything he possibly can to try and beat you. I'll take that kid on my team any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Now, I'm not saying he's the next Dustin Pedroia, but damn it, if he didn't even the swing even looks similar to Petey. So I'm curious to see what this kind of hodgepodge collection of picks comes together to look like, and how many of them will actually see their way through the Padres system before they're traded for something else.
Always a very relevant question. A ton of pitchers on the final day, maybe to solve some of the issues that they've had, just getting reliable arms, whether starters or relievers when they need them. We've talked about that. And lots of speed up the middle in the outfield. You talk about Head, Homer Bush, another guy with that just has burners. And so I think you can expect to see a lot of athleticism in the outfield at the minor league levels, and hopefully some of those guys translate. As far as Head's concerned, I mean, that's like elite top level. Like, I guess his trainer told, was it the Sun Times, some other publication in the Chicago area, that he thinks he could run a 4.3. So that tells you like the level of speed that he has got.
And that's a 4.360, by the way.
yeah, exactly. Not a 40, 60. And, they seem to like his hit tool, from pole to pole. Whether or not, there's been a few instances like with Robert Hassel, questions about his power, CJ Abrams, questions about his power. But they seem to think, Preller and Chris Kemp, that he's the guy that's going to get them some slug, even if it's just kind of extra base, doubles, triples. And what did Kemp say? There's some sneaky juice in the bat. So we'll see.
Well, he's thicker than CJ Abrams right now. And he's probably thicker than Robert Hassel when they drafted him. Like he's got a stronger frame. Maybe he hasn't really I mean, again, he's in the suburbs of Chicago, not exactly a traditional baseball powerhouse or a hotbed. So maybe you get him into a professional system and show him a little bit of different a swing path, and he can start to get to some of that natural power that might be in there. Because if he can't get to, he's gap to gap kind of guy, right? But maybe nobody's able to show him really how to get to his natural tool. He's got bat speed, and he's got a good body that you can put some extra size on. That's a very intriguing pick to me.
Yeah. Anything else before we turn the page?
No, I'm curious to see what your questions are. I'm kind of focusing on that, because these are always fun, because you come up with some good stuff.
Well, first off, thanks for joining us. If you're listening in your podcast app, watching live on YouTube at this moment, chime in, answer some of these questions for us. Let us know what you think, and we will get to your thoughts on that. And if you're watching on NBC San Diego streaming or on NBC7.com, certainly appreciate you spending some time with us. All right, let's get to it. I was trying to figure out what to do with this pod, and it's like, let's just come up with some, not what ifs.
Like Marvel.
No, yeah, just kind of predictions, some general questions, and I'm curious to see how you think things will take shape. First one I had, second half MVP. I'll let you do position player and pitcher.
Assuming no one comes to town to be the savior, like
Sure.
What's on the roster right now.
Yeah, let's go with what's on the roster right now. Although, if you have something out of left field, if you feel pretty certain that they're going to bring somebody in, and you can take this in whatever direction you want.
Salvador Perez. No, again, we've talked about how much I love Salvi and how great it'd be to get him here. But
yes,
okay, I'll give you like an obvious answer and then kind of a dark horse answer. All right, the obvious answer: position player Manny Machado, because he has to play like an MVP for this team to get to where it wants to go. And the last week or so, maybe 2 weeks or so, he's looked like Manny Machado. So if he continues to do that in the second half, that's your guy, because he's the one who really, the straw that really stirs the drink. Dark horse candidate, I'm going to give you Trent Grisham, because if he can, he's shown signs of waking up offensively. If he can have some sort of come to Jesus moment and hits anything like we hope that he can, maybe if he can hit 270 for the second half, he'd catch lightning in a ball. If he can do 20-20 for the second half and really give some length and some spark to this offense and keep playing the defense we know he plays, I think he'll be a guy who can really help to jumpstart everything. And if he continues to go and just turn the lineup over, because you got Bogart, Soto, Tatis, you get those guys more at bats, runners on base, you're going to be okay. And it's been Grisham's job in the back of the order to get on base, and he hasn't been doing that as much. If he does that, get you on base more. And again, we've seen it more often lately. He can be a late in the lineup catalyst who can jumpstart this offense just a little bit, like we saw in the playoffs last year, especially against the Mets. On the pitching staff side, I think it's going to have to be Nick Martinez. He's the guy you want. Joe Musgrove will be the MVP, because the way that he's been throwing it, and give him a little more time off. He's going to start the fifth game out of the gate in the Toronto opener. Give him a little more time. Joe, I think now he's got all of his injury problems behind him, Joe is going to be an absolute stallion the rest of the way. The dark horse candidate, Nick Martinez, because he's struggled a little bit here and there out of the bullpen. We saw what he was capable of doing once he settled into that role late in the year. And if Michael Wacha, for some reason, can't come back from this shoulder thing, Nick Martinez is probably the guy you got to look at going into that starting rotation. So his versatility is going to mean everything to this pitching staff as we go down the stretch.
Yeah. You answered another question I have. We'll get to that in a second. For MVP, I've been thinking Tatis all day. But
you can't go wrong with that pick.
Can't really go wrong with that. But did you hear Juan Soto's comments during he was on the desk on the broadcast with the whole crew and talking about the second half and what are the Padres going to do and do they need to make a trade? And he's like, no, we got everybody we need. We've got all the talent we need. It's right there. We just need to do it. And I was like, you know what? I like that. I like that from Juan Soto. And maybe if he's got that mindset, he feels like, all right, I need to go out and prove it. And I had a really rough first month, made it to the All-Star game, figured some stuff out. There's still questions about me and my future and how much money I'm going to make and this and that. he probably feels like he has still something to prove individually, but now as the team, like having that mindset. And so here last second, I'm going to switch from Tatis to Juan Soto, who's, you could make an argument from an offensive standpoint was their first half MVP. But I'm going to say it's going to be clear from him in the second half, a guy who I thought, after what we saw in the spring, I thought he was going to be like out of the gates, just crushing it.
Yeah.
Was not the case. Took him some time, but I think he'll get there. And on the staff, I was thinking Snell, but maybe I'll go Suarez. Once Suarez,
that's the one, man. If he comes back, that's the thing. We just don't know.
Yeah. So I'll go with Suarez instead. I mean, Snell's been humming along great. I think it's between he and Musgrove. Those are the obvious picks. Hader, always kind of in the conversation. That's just the nature of the spot he's in. But given some of the shakiness from the bullpen, this is a team that is desperately needed, like top level Robert Suarez. And if he comes back and is able to kind of solidify things in that setup position, especially as many close games as they've played and lost, he could be extremely valuable. I also had surprise star, and I think you already gave me two of them, in Trent Grisham and Nick Martinez. If you have any others, I'd say to this point, you're looking at
for sure.
You're looking at Garrett.
To touch on a couple of things you just said.
Okay.
One, I was going to toy around with Josh Hader being the MVP, but based on who he brings back in a trade. So I was I'm not going to go there though, because that's just completely up in the air. Like we could share thoughts about that later.
Sure.
But remember we talked to Juan Soto at the All-Star game last year when he was still with the Nationals, and he was talking about trades and do you need to get out of town? He was not saying anything even remotely close to we've got what we need in Washington. It was, well, you never know. I mean, I don't want to go through a rebuild. Yeah. If he's saying that, he will tell you what's on his mind for the most part. So if he says that, I really don't think it's the platitude. Well, what else is he going to say? Because he didn't say it the previous year when you're talking about when he was with the Nats. So I think that does hold a lot of weight with what with what he was saying at the All-Star game there. Surprise star. I'm going to go to a guy who I'm going to give you two. Again, I'm going to give you two for all of these because it's hard to narrow down just one, and maybe that's copying out. But I've been waiting for Matt Carpenter to get hot.
Yeah.
And with what he did with the Yankees last year in that small sample size, it's in there. And I watched that guy before games at Petco Park. He's out there. He's taking the extra batting practice. He is grinding. He's trying to figure this out. Maybe he gets a few more consistent at bats since they DFA'd Nelson Cruz. This is all going to be based around the kind of the DH position here. So I think he's a guy who, if he gets hot, look out rest of I can't just say National League because of the balanced schedule now, but look out pitching, because when he starts to feel it and get it going, Matt Carpenter can be hot for a month and just do insane amounts of damage. You saw with his 700 slugging percentage a year ago. The other guy, and I know Padre fans, you're going to roast me for this one. And I'll go. You already know. Once I say
Eric
that,
Hosmer.
you know what I'm going to say Austin Nola. I think because maybe it's because I want him to do so well, and I also think that they've been riding Gary Sanchez pretty hard.
Yeah.
So Sanchez is going to have to start getting some more DH at bats, like putting him behind the plate as often as they have. You can't have him catch 5-6 times a week. So Austin Nola is probably going to get a few more chances behind the plate with Sanchez also in the lineup as a DH, especially against left-handed pitching. And I'm waiting for Austin to have that, wild card NLCS, NLDS type of showing that he gave us last year. It's in there, man. So I think even if he's catching 3 times a week, if he starts hitting the way that we've seen him be able to hit, I think that's your sneaky star for the second half, based on the fact he's going to probably get some more opportunities. And if the trade deadline, they bring in a catcher, it is what it is, then I'm completely wrong. But he'd be my dark horse sneaky star, with Matt Carpenter being number one.
Yeah, I think you could very easily make an argument for Ha-Seong Kim, and
but he's been a star,
and exactly, and so that's why
even Bob Melvin called him the best defender on the infield in the game.
Yeah, and so that's why it wouldn't really be a surprise. And Crone has been trending a little bit of late. On that same thread, though, what if I gave you Luis Campusano, who seems to be, nearing a return, did some good things. He homered his last game, just looking at his game log, homered his last game before the injury, had a 3-hit game as well. We've obviously been waiting for it. He's shown some growth and progression in just terms of what he does behind the plate. And as you said, Gary Sanchez, they've been riding that guy hard.
Yep.
And so he's going to need a break at some point. And maybe it is Nola, but I'm very interested in what Campusano can do down the stretch. And if we can finally see him often enough, because again, he was right before the injury. Bob Melvin was talking about splitting that workload a little bit and Luis Campusano getting more opportunities to start. And then, of course, he just gets injured in mid-April. Haven't seen him since. And so I'll go with Campy. I think we've all been waiting for Campy. I'm going to go with Campy as my surprise star.
That's a good call. I like that. Although remember, keep in mind, it is at El Paso. And as of right now, Fernando Tatis Jr. is still in the top 50 in home runs in the Pacific Coast League. So you can get hot real fast and hit a lot at one time when you're talking about El Paso.
That's true. Let's see, where are we at? I'm going to skip that one. No, I'll go with that one. Player you're most worried about. Flip side of the coin. Guy that you have a little concern about that might not carry his weight the way that you would expect or like them to.
I'll go with God. Yeah, hope. Okay, again,
we don't want this to be the case.
Yeah, exactly. The number one would be, because it almost sounds like we're predicting a downfall here. The number one would be Hader, because if he somehow hits a stretch like he had in the middle of last year, they don't have that cushion to play with right now. So if he, for some reason, loses his landing point, and that was what he was telling us last year was a problem when he was struggling so much like he was, is he wasn't landing on the right part of his foot on the right part of the mound. So if he loses that again, or something else weird happens and all of a sudden he starts getting, beat up a little bit, that would be devastating for this team, because there's literally nobody else who you can put in there and in the closer spot that can consistently do what he can do. The other one would probably be, and I say this because it's been so inconsistent, would be Xander Bogaerts, because that wrist, man, not that he's not trying to do it, that the wrist has just been a real issue. So if he can't get it going consistently because of a physical limitation, that would be bad.
Yeah, no, I think Xander jumps out right away because of the wrist, and then because of some of the mechanical stuff that happens as a result of the wrist when you're kind of catering to that, and some of your mechanics get a little off because you're trying to avoid the pain, or you're not comfortable, or this or that. And he talked about that last year, as kind of like, even when you're feeling good, you're having to kind of work your way back. And then we saw that, and then we started to see some of the power and stuff return, which is a great sign. But given that it just took one pitch to basically throw him off for like a month or two, you can't help but have a little bit of trepidation there. I guess, it's hard because he was so rock solid for them all of last year, has not been to this point so far this season, missed a little time when he was sick, and just not as reliable one start to the next as you, Darvish. And I think you believe in the track record, his ability to adjust, obviously the array of pitches, he can come at you in so many different ways. But I mean, he had like a crazy streak of like 6-7 inning quality starts last year. You could basically like book it whenever you had Darvish on the mound. Hasn't been the case. Looking at the game log now, 305 last time out against the Mets, 4-6 before that, 6-5, 4-5 1/3, 7 scoreless against the Cubs, 7-2 2/3. It's just been kind of all over the place. And, this is a team that's in a position where they need as much stability start to start as possible because of where they are in the standings and just the inconsistencies of the lineup. And so I think those are the two guys I would say I have concern about. There are also two guys that you probably would have, like, based on the track record, as much confidence as possible that they will get their job done. But again, with Bogaerts, that's provided he's healthy. So maybe it's weird to be concerned about those two guys, but that's just based on what we've seen kind of to this point and knowing that Bogarts has been kind of fighting something for a little while now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it has merit. And Darvish absolutely has merit. I think it's because we know that he got messed up with that whole World Baseball Classic thing. We know, and then he goes and gets, he gets the flu and he has had trouble, and he's still weak when he goes out there on the mound. He's not, gotten his best stuff. So if that continues, if he just gets a little bit off and can't quite get back to being the guy that we know he is, like that's even just a little bit of a tweak being off. There's a lot of moving parts in that delivery. It could take him a few starts to get back. And with the way that this team has been in close games, if you even gives up, 3-4 runs in 6 innings, that's a closer game than you're going to hope to be in.
Yeah, definitely. We kind of touched on this. Grade Preller's deadline. Obviously, we don't know what he's done at the deadline, but just what our sense of what this deadline will be like. 2020 at that time felt like an A. Our grade would probably be different at this point. 2021, that was like a C minus, maybe a D plus. That was a
gigantic F.
2022, at the moment, you get Soto and Hader like A plus plus plus. Soto
greatest
struggles.
Trade deadline in the history of the game.
So maybe that alters your grade. Just Soto's kind of rough, runway to his San Diego Padres career, but just based on the guys that you landed, like A plus. If you had to guess, what type of grade are we giving AJ Preller? And it'll be first blush, like not like 3 years after the fact when we like legislated or whatever the word is. Countless.
It's like grading an NFL draft. You don't really know for 3 years, but we graded anyway. Did they try and address in position of need? Yada yada. Like, what'd you do effort wise? Like the Patriots don't take 2 kickers. What the I get that. That's okay. Next guy on your board. You don't take 2 kickers. That's sign one in free agency.
Yeah,
kicker, You're not no more than 5 kickers are getting drafted. Stop it. So I will say it'll be a solid B, because I don't know if he has the prospect capital to go out and make something huge happen. Mm-hmm. I also don't think he's going to sit on his laurels. Remember, this is the longest that AJ Preller has ever gone in making a trade. We're almost reaching twice as long as the longest stretch.
Has he not done it since the deadline?
For him to make a trade. So the deadline, exactly.
Oh, wow.
The deadline was the last time he made a trade. It was free. It was signing free agent. I'm not even talking about like, little minuscule moves where like just dealing a couple minor leaguers or a player to be named later just because they, have somebody's buddy in Texas wants to get his hands on this dude. There's been nothing. So he's got to be chomping at the bit to try and make some kinds of moves. So something's going to happen. It's not going to be earth shattering. It also won't be insignificant. Solid B.
Yeah. No, I think you and I are along the same line. Something useful, not a major splash. We talked about just they need to kind of improve around the margins, upgrade a DH, outfield depth, bullpen type. I think some combination of that. I made the comparison last time. It's 2021, but hopefully it works, And I think Adam Frazier right away was kind of a strange fit, but we're like, hey, all-star, he's hitting like 304, they'll figure it out. And they didn't figure it out. And then Daniel Hudson had been really good, suddenly wasn't very good. And they needed a starter right at that point. And what was Preller's line? Well, we're building on his strength in the bullpen, and we feel like that's going to help us out. And that did not play out the way that I think he or anybody expected. And so, but I could see a similar type of move where you're getting like a solid bat, good reliever. You just hope that at this point they don't forget what they're doing as soon as they get to San Diego.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Right now, aside from the catcher position, and again, just kind of with an up in the air on what Gary Sanchez is going to do in the second half, it's going to be hard to improve at a lot of those spots. So you don't have to go out and do a whole bunch of stuff like you did last year or the year before.
Yeah.
It's the pitching staff you need to worry about.
Yeah. On that note, or not, the next one I had was stat we talk about, like a number that defines the club.
Runners in scoring position.
To this point, it'd be runners in scoring position. To this point, it would be winless in extra innings. For a while, you could talk about bullpen ERA. Like those are the ones just off the top of my head. If you really got in the weeds, like struggles against the fastball, that sort of thing. But what do you think will kind of define the second half or be the stat that we find ourselves regurgitating that kind of sheds light on where this team's at?
Again, going a little bit and not doing some obvious stuff here. I'm going to go with bullpen ERA because the pen has given up a lot of leads this year. And again, that's on the offense, not answering back like they should have been because they have the talent to do that. If you can get guys in the right spots in the relief corps and get them to be more consistent, that will make all the difference in the world. So I'm not talking about blown holds, blown saves, whatever. It's bullpen ERA. Steven Wilson comes back hopefully right at the end of the All-Star break. Get some guys. I mean, Tom Cosgrove missed some time. He's been fantastic. If you can get these guys to continue to do that and be more consistent, and then Suarez comes back, and you can hang on to those leads, that record in 1-run games, which is what, 8-9 something like that. It's some ridiculous. That turns. And that will make a huge difference. And the 0-8 in extra innings that blows my mind. You figured by accident you would win one in extra innings at this point.
Yeah, they are. Like you said, 0-8, 5-15 in 1-run games.
Good Lord. So it's 1 and 2-run games, the one I was thinking of then, close games.
They from the account Codify, which is always kind of tweeting out interesting baseball stats. ERA since June 1st. Phillies number 1 at 3.16, Padres number 2 at 3.52.
Regular, like all staff or bullpen?
I'm assuming that is all staff, and I'm guessing while the bullpen has kind of done this, the starters have kind of done that.
Yes.
And
Snell caught fire. Musgrove got right.
Yeah. Waka's been, he's been Seth Lugo's been good.
He replaced Ryan Weathers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, again, it's like pitching hasn't been the issue as much as we kind of gripe about the bullpen from time to time. They kind of lost their way for a couple of weeks. Hopefully can get it back. Hopefully, Suarez, Wilson, others can kind of plug the holes there. I'll go with the what's the opposite of regression? Progression. Return to the mean on those close game, extra inning game. I'm going to say somewhere in the first week of the second half, they go to extras. Well, they can't have a walk-off. See, that kind of kills it. A walk-off would be more fun. But I'm going to say somebody does something heroic. They win in extra innings. They kind of get their swagger back, the belief. I'm sure there's a cloud that hangs over them once they get to extras. I'm sure they know they're 0-8. I'm going to say that breaks a little bit, and the confidence returns, and they start to go on a run, and we start to see them winning extra inning games. We start to see them winning 1-run ball games, and that starts to revert, and that's part of how they kind of claw their way back up.
Yeah, you're right. They're on the road. They can have a walk-off. How about they score 8 runs in the top of the 8th?
Yeah, some crazy comeback.
Somebody. Let's do what the Mets did to them in this last, they scored 4 times in the top of the 10th. And then Manny hit a 2-run homer to at least make it kind of interesting, but just bury somebody with a massive top of the 10th inning. That would be kind of the equivalent.
They're down like 9-2 in the first game of the doubleheader against Philly and score 8 runs in like the 8th and 9th and come back to win it. It's a 1-run game.
Doubleheader to the 7-inning doubleheader, so that's not going to happen.
That's right.
But
I thought they were are they still 7th inning? I can't remember. It's too many rule changes. Yes, you're right.
Missed a memo. Let me see.
No, I'm sure you're right.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to second guess myself on this. I'm not sure. MLB. Go keep talking. I'll do some research.
So I think, I just think something like that's going to happen. The proverbial levee is going to break, and the team's going to find their way in those close games. And I think that's what we're going to be talking about. And, as far as like the runners and scoring position thing, we've seen that start to correct itself. And, will they be suddenly top of the league there? I don't know about that, but I don't think they're going to be quite as abysmal. I don't think it's going to be quite as dire when they get into some of those runners and scoring position type spots, especially late in games when they really need to make something happen. So that's what I'm thinking.
I was wrong. It is full blown.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Nice. So
I know in 2022 they did it. They got rid of it. And for some reason I thought they brought it back this year, but I misread that. So yeah, you're right. 9 innings. I strike myself from the record.
I was a fan of the 7-inning doubleheaders. So I thought those were great.
Oh, so we're managers and pitchers and literally everyone else involved.
Bullpen staffs and didn't Clevenger in his last healthy start throw a complete game
7 inning
against the Giants. Yeah, in a doubleheader. Okay. First player to walk it off in extras. Who's going to be the Jorge Alfaro?
Jorge Alfaro. He was DFA'd. Bring Georgie back.
I would love that.
Wow, who's going to walk it off? It's hard for me to say one of the big guys at the top of the order, because when you're starting with a guy on second base, a lot of times that dude's going to get walked intentionally. So I'll go with Jake Cronenworth.
Okay. Yeah.
Hitting fifth, sixth, seventh, somewhere in the order like that. I think Jake will probably have the right of first refusal on that option. So I think let's go with Jake Cronenworth, the first guy to hit an extra inning walk-off.
I was going to go with Ha-Sung Kim, and I know the fan base would love it, and Kim would love it, and his teammates would love it. But I think it'd be more fun if I said Austin Nola and went with your boy. Austin Nola coming up, struggled in every big spot. It seems like, the ball tends to find you. It seems like his spot in the order always seems to come up when there's like 2 on and 2 outs. And I'm going to go with Austin Nola. Austin Nola is the one that breaks the seal, just sends Petco Park into a frenzy. With a walk-off base knock. That'd be good for Austin.
Yes, it would. And all would be forgiven for about 10 hours.
For 10, yeah, that's about it. A record against the Dodgers, Giants, and Diamondbacks. I believe it's 7 games apiece against all 3 remaining.
So 21 games.
Well, you can split it up. If you say, hey, 4-3 against the Dodgers, yada yada. You don't give me the full 21. You can give it to me team by team.
Yeah, don't make me do math. That's always bad for everybody. All right, let's go. They better go 5-2 against the Rockies. You better do that, because the Rockies are truly freaking terrible.
Yeah. So
5-2 against the Rockies. Let's say 4-3 against the Diamondbacks. So it's at 9-5.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in recent history that makes me think they'll do better than 2-5 against the Dodgers. There's just nothing. If it's a postseason, that's a different story. I'd be Pollyanna-ing myself if I said they'd do better than 2-5 against the Dodgers. So that is what? Is he 5 + 2 + 4? I feel like I'm to include 1 + 2
11.
+ 2 + 1. Yeah, 11. So 11 and 7.
No,
wait. 11 and 10.
What about the Giants? Giants and D-backs.
They've Man, that 4-game series in San Francisco, they had the Giants number in so many of those, and the bullpen faltered. I don't see that happening again.
Yeah.
I'd say let's go 4-3 against the Giants as well.
I'll go 3-4 against the Dodgers, 4-3 against the Giants, so you're breaking even, 5-2 against the D-backs. So that's 12-9. 12-9 between those 3.
Yeah. What about the Rockies?
Rockies, I kind of left them out because I guess I was just focusing on the teams that are actually in the race.
Yeah, but remember, it was
those games do matter.
Not beating the crappy teams in baseball is what kept the Padres out of the playoffs. So they have to make hay against bad baseball teams.
Undefeated against the Rockies.
Done, by the way.
And they get to the playoffs because they go undefeated against the Rockies in the second half. That's the key. Padres will get back above 500 blank. Your answer can be never. Your answer can be a specific date, a week.
Ooh, well, let's pull up the schedule and I can give you an exact day.
Let's do it.
All right. So let's say they split.
They're currently 4 under. They're currently 4 games under 500. So we'll start with that. Going into a 10-game road trip.
I think you can take 2 out of 3 in Toronto.
Okay. So you're 3 games.
3 games back.
3 games under 500.
You inexplicably drop one stupidly in Detroit.
Mm-hmm. So now you're 2 games?
2 games out. They will get to 500 on July 25th versus the Pirates.
So they go win-win against the Pirates.
They go win the first 2 against the Pirates, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I kind of, because we were talking about, 6-4, 7-3, that type of road trip. You would consider that fine. You're not hurting yourself. Hopefully you get some of those wins against Philly. But if you do that, then yeah, you're like 2, 3, 1 or 2 games. And so, yeah, I think that that Pirates series is when they, did I say get above or reach?
Reach.
Well, I wrote get above, but we'll go with reach. Maybe they'll do the
Okay.
same. Maybe they'll sweep the Pirates, and Wednesday, July 26th, they are back above 500 for the first time, and I don't even know when, but it's been a while.
So since yes, they got swept in Pittsburgh, return the favor, sweep them at Petco Park.
And maybe it's just kind of that return home as a whole with the Rangers as well. The week going into the trade deadline, obviously very, very important, as is, the 10-game road trip. But, what a time for them to, hey, we're back above 500. We've made up a couple games in the standings. No reason to sell at this point. And then hopefully pick up a couple useful pieces once August 1st rolls around.
I like it. Oh, by the way, how great is it that on that Friday when the Rangers come to town, they're doing their Padres Hall of Fame induction ceremony on the 28th. It'll be the first time Bruce Bochy is back.
Oh, how about that?
Which I got a chuckle out of. I thought that's kind of cool. Because you got to figure
cool.
Eventually, like, Bochy is going to be in that Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has. I know. He won 3 with the Giants. That's not his. All right. It's Buddy Black came in. He made sense at the time. He had a couple good years. It's whatever. Bruce Bochy's got to go. Now, you're not going to do it while he's managing for somebody else. But at some point, he has to be in the Padres World Hall of Fame. He's, as far as I know, he's the only guy who was a member of either the roster or the coaching staff for both Padres World Series trips, right? Him and Tim Flannery, who was, of course, the third base coach. So it's like, you got to put Bochy in. You have to.
Yeah. I don't know how many people would push back on that. He seems beloved enough and appreciated, especially it's probably one of those situations where the appreciation for him, how much has it grown since he departed, just given the way things have kind of gone. So yeah, I would say that week, hopefully the Pirates series, they get back to, if not above 500. Last two before we wrap it up. Padres will be where heading into September? I don't mean geographically. I mean in terms of the wild card race. I'm assuming at this point, the way things are, the division race is out of reach. But hey, if you feel otherwise, go for it. But the Padres are X games back of the wild card, or in the wild card, on September 1st.
September 1st. 6 games back right now. Got to have.
Uh-oh, not hearing you. Not hearing Derek. And I don't think Derek's hearing me. Wait a second. And he was launching into a very good explanation. And I think his signal, we're having issues with Derek's signal. I'll give my answer, and hopefully the internet issues can get sorted out. But I think at that point, it's interesting because if you look at the month of August, they've got the Dodgers, they've got Arizona, who's obviously in it. 7 games in 10 days against Arizona. That's a really important stretch. Miami's in it. We got Miami at home. Milwaukee, you figure, will be around. Cardinals, not. They appear to be sellers. This season's been a disaster. So you got some competition. You certainly got some winnable series. I think they're going to get in like within 2 or 3 games of a wild card spot going into that last month. And then you got the Giants, who could be ahead of them. You've got the Phillies, and then another long road trip midway through September. But obviously opportunities against some of those teams that are ahead of you. Philly, the Giants, once September rolls around, Dodgers. But I think they'll be within striking distance couple games once they get to September. Is Derek back with me? What do you think about that, Derek? No. Still having some issues with his audio. Apologies for that. As we of course, as we're kind of winding down and now getting to like the most important part, which is, will they make the playoffs? Will the Padres come back and make the playoffs? My answer will be yes. Oops, there we are. I think I got you now.
Yeah, so all I have to do is enter the studio, enter the studio again.
Turn it off, turn it back on, blow on the cartridge. You're good.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, nice Super Nintendo reference. Yeah, that's I heard what you said. What's weird is everything was moving fine on the screen. So hey, there you go. Where will they be? They will be one game back in the wild card.
Okay.
Milwaukee's not sustainable, a negative 13 run differential. They're going to fall apart. Plus, like they did last year, trading Hader, they'll do something stupid and take off all the players.
Trade Devin Williams or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Philly, I think, is real. San Francisco, the Giants, I still don't buy the Giants.
Yeah.
I think they'll fall back. Miami, I don't know how the hell Miami is 14 games over 500 with a negative 5 run differential. I don't see how it's possible to sustain that. So I think Arizona, San Francisco, Arizona, Philadelphia, they'll be right there. And then you're looking at probably either Marlins, Giants, one of those two, just because the Marlins have such a large lead. They're 9 games up right now. One of those two is going to be sitting there right there as that third spot that the Padres have to track down.
Mm-hmm. And they do see them at some point. Late August, they've got 3 against Miami. They already made the trip there. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a big series. The big question, Derek, do they make the playoffs?
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. I mean, do we have another option other than to say yes?
Like, I mean, yeah, you do. No, you do. You do.
I'm not ready to admit that this season is going to be the biggest tank in the history of Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's going to go to the Mets.
What you'd be saying. Yeah,
that's going to go to the Mets. I can't see how, with Bob Melvin as the skipper and the tweaks that'll be made at the trade deadline and the talent on this roster and the pride I hear from these guys when I talk to them before and after games, I don't see how they can't, and as we saw with the Phillies last year, you just got to be that last one in. If you're the last one in, but you are playing good baseball down the stretch, you can ride that wave for a while. Yeah. So you just got to find, as Charger fans know, General Manager AJ Smith used to say, you got to get in the tournament. And if you can get in the tournament, anything can happen. So yeah, I still wholeheartedly believe that this team has the ability to get in. And I just don't believe some of these other clubs are better than the Padres and enough to hold them off, especially not if, but when this club starts playing consistently to its potential.
Yeah, and hopefully we've already gotten a glimpse of that in the week or so leading up. And even before they went on that road trip, after the Rays series, you started to see it. And so I think we've gotten glimpses. I think that's real, like you said. Highest run differential of all the teams in the National League wildcard race currently. It's just, can you get over kind of some of those close game, late game, high leverage type situations, that can turn things very quickly for this team. And again, is a team like Miami going to continue to perform at that level in those situations that they have? It's hard to see. So I think we're both aligned there. Probably looking at a playoff team. And hopefully they prove us right and show it to us, prove Juan Soto right. I love the moxie. And you're right. I think when you hear, from guys like Manny and Soto and those guys, they seem calm, they seem confident. And so that's what you like to see. And hopefully that will be the tone we hear from them when we finally get a chance to talk to them in person, that Pirates series, when they're going to get back to 500. But first things first, got to start on the road, 4 games against Philly. Need to at least split with those guys. It'd be great to make up a game or two. We'll see about that. And then it's on to Toronto and Detroit. And we will be back with you in a week to discuss what we've seen after the better portion of that road trip is behind us.
Well, then you look at that schedule, man. End of July into August. You got 3 at home against the Pirates, 3 at home against the Rangers, 3 at Colorado, who's not good, 4 at home against the Dodgers, which is always going to be a Dodger thing. Then you get 2 at Seattle, 3 at Arizona, and then you come home for 10 straight days against Baltimore, Arizona, and then there's the Marlins.
Mm-hmm.
So it's telling you, man, this is doable.
It's doable. It's doable. I think that's our takeaway from this pod. It's doable. Got to go out and do it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we sincerely hope that you're able to enjoy the second half. See you, everybody.